Hello voices. You can call me Susan. I'm a recent subscriber to this channel. The story I'm about to share happened to my nephew about 5 years ago. I vividly remember the day he, whom I'll refer to as James here, told me he was gay and wanted to share that he was truly in love with a guy from another city who was passing through our town. We were at home on a quiet afternoon when he finally decided to share this important part of his life with me. We had always been very close, so it was an emotional moment, and he received my loving and understanding support. However, what we didn't know at the time was that this revelation was just the beginning of a complex and painful story. Years later, James shared with me the details of his experience in a toxic relationship with a narcissistic man, a story that shook the emotions of all his friends and made us question many things about love and emotional abuse. He told me about the trip he took to New Hampshire to reconnect with a former boyfriend from his past, whom I'll call Peter. Peter convinced him that the years had made him grow as a person, that he had learned from his mistakes, and that he still loved him. James believed his words once again, even though he had suffered a lot in the past due to countless betrayals. My nephew was a different man at that time, more confident, but he didn't realize he was being drawn into an atmosphere that felt more like a love bomb, similar to the first time they were together. As he was working from home at that time, he decided to take a risk and spend time with Peter in his apartment in New Hampshire, which made us lose contact with him for a while. He seemed distant and not very interested in sharing those moments with us. But since he assured me that everything was fine, I thought he was just devoting himself to living that love story. However, the truth, unfortunately, was very different. He told me that after the first few weeks, he was no longer happy. On the contrary, he felt trapped, limited, with his self-esteem shattered and no strength to react. He reported that on the night before his return to our house, an event occurred in the apartment where he lived with his then-boyfriend Peter, an event that still gives me chills just thinking about it. It was a night of social gathering where they lived. My nephew had decided to return home that same night because he could no longer bear what was happening. However, he ended up staying there due to bad weather in the area. There were already some of Peter's friends in the apartment, but in a silent dimness because the night was already dark and stormy. Occasionally, a cold wind howled through the cracks in Peter's living room window, creating a sinister symphony for what was about to happen. Shadows danced on the walls as if they knew the secrets that resided there. Peter was a renowned artist in town, a man who exuded charm and beauty wherever he went. His mesmerizing eyes, hair as black as night, and seductive smile were enough to catch the attention of anyone who dared to cross his path. He knew it and used this advantage without hesitation. My nephew, James, was the opposite of Peter in many ways. Shy and loyal, he was a sensitive young man who found refuge in that relationship. He fell head over heels for Peter's magnetism, believing he had found the love of his life. But the charm, as he would soon discover, was only the outer layer of a hidden nightmare. The first signs of emotional abuse were subtle. Peter made comments disguised as jokes that undermined James's self-esteem. "There will be a lot of important people at this event. Why do you want to go too? You won't even feel comfortable. You can go if you want, but you know I'll come back whenever I want and with whomever I want." Gradually, Peter's compliments to other handsome men became more frequent, as if he were trying to destroy my nephew's confidence. Social media was a battleground for Peter. He constantly shared photos of his numerous adventures, highlighting his glamorous life and the attention he received from other men. James watched these posts, happy for his beloved's achievements, but without understanding why he was increasingly disregarded and left behind every day, questioning his own self-image and his value in the relationship. Gradually, Peter began to isolate James from his friends and family. He manipulated my nephew, making him believe that no one else valued him except him. Psychological abuse deepened, and James felt increasingly trapped in a relationship that no longer brought him joy, but only pain and anxiety. The definitive breaking point occurred on that stormy night before James's return. Peter had invited a group of friends to a party at his house. James, who was starting to recover from the emotional pain Peter had caused and was about to return to his town, decided it was time to confront his abuser. That night, with the sound of rain beating on the windows, James revealed the true extent of his suffering. He confronted Peter, describing how he constantly felt belittled, humiliated, and disrespected. Tears streamed down his face as he practically begged for a healthier relationship. Peter's response was cruel. He laughed at James's vulnerability, accusing him of being weak and melodramatic. Instead of empathy, my nephew received more humiliation in front of Peter's friends, who seemed aligned with their host's narcissism. However, on that fateful night, when the storm roared and shadows twisted in Peter's apartment, something more sinister was at play, something that seemed out of place in the world of the living. While James cried and tried to compose himself, something strange and supernatural began to happen. That invisible presence began to take shape in the middle of the room. A dark and unsettling shadow began to materialize gradually, coming to life as if it increased through James's despair and anguish. It was as if the accumulated emotional pain had acquired a dark and vengeful presence. Peter's friends, who had hitherto been complicit in his narcissistic behavior, began to feel a shiver down their spines. The atmosphere became tense, and the air was charged with sinister energy. A cold wind swept through the apartment, extinguishing the candles Peter had lit for the party, plunging everything into complete darkness, except for the moonlight streaming through one of the windows. A dark voice echoed through the apartment, whispering unintelligible words but filled with anger and despair. Peter's friends were terrified, while he, who had previously laughed at James's pain, was now petrified. He saw James's pale and sad face illuminated by the moonlight, and his own distorted reflection in the windows. It was as if the abuse he had inflicted on my nephew was now haunting him. That room seemed like a portal to the supernatural that night, a physical manifestation of the emotional pain James had suffered. The air was heavy with remorse and regret, and a sense of oppression dominated everyone. The moment James finally left that house, the supernatural shadow disappeared, as if its revenge had been fulfilled. However, that night left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it, a dark reminder that emotional abuse does not go unpunished. The toxic relationship of Peter and James had come to an end, but the supernatural presence that had manifested that night served as a grim warning about the consequences of narcissism and the cruelty inflicted by such a personality. As James distanced himself from that town and the darkness of his past relationship, he knew he had escaped something far more sinister than he could have ever imagined. In the following times, Peter attempted to reach out to my nephew once more. He sent a message expressing his sadness, claiming that he had lost his sponsorships due to what he insisted were unfounded accusations and that he needed his help. However, my nephew no longer felt anything for him, neither good nor bad. He simply knew that his pain had transformed him into a person capable of understanding what true love is. Have you ever experienced a similar supernatural manifestation during a moment of liberation from something that haunted you, like in this toxic relationship with a narcissistic person? Share your thoughts in the comments. Also, send your story to the email provided in the video description, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you soon.